Welcome to the Real Life Buyer podcast. In this podcast, you will hear interviews with business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, authors, and technical specialists in their field. These professionals will hasten your development, accelerate your career, and broaden your business know-how. Now, introducing your host, Dave Barr, interviewing with a purchasing twist.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Life Buyer. What challenges do the construction industry face? How are they taking advantage of emerging technologies, and what strategies are the best employing to cope with disruption and escalating costs? My guest today is Chicago-based Anthony Amunategui, the founder of CDO Group, a national commercial construction firm with a 25-year pedigree that has worked with some of the world's largest brands to build an estimated 1 million square feet of retail space per year. Anthony is also the host of the Future Factory podcast, featuring industry-leading guests in construction, technology, and development. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Anthony onto the podcast. Hi, Anthony.
Dave, thank you for having me on. I am such a fan of your show. I feel like it's a gift to be an honor to be on your show today, and thank you.
Very kind, and you certainly have an inspiring show as well, which I actively encourage people to listen to. I've been listening indeed today to your podcast, so thank you for sharing your wisdom through that media. So I'd like to start to understand what really inspired you to pursue a career in the commercial construction industry, and perhaps what have been some of the most challenging and rewarding moments in your journey so far.
Dave, it's always like this funny thing to say, what inspired me. I would say to you that I ended up in construction. It was not the line I chose from the get-go. Right from the get-go, I thought I was going to be an accountant, right? I went to school to be an accountant. I started my career I went to be a stockbroker and worked in the brokerage industry for a long time. And until the market crashed there, and I had to find some other options. I ended up in construction kind of completely accidental. Like it literally ended up as a thing I did to get myself. I went back to college to take some more school, and while I was in school, I worked on doing some construction work and painting. And I started a little painting company in South Florida. I went to school in South Florida, and I started a little commercial painting company. And that led myself to doing a bigger and bigger projects. Someone invited me to come to work for them at a company called Discovery Zone. This is going back almost 35 years ago. And from there, they had me hired. They hired me, and I built hundreds of stores around the country, even around the world. And I did several other brands, companies like Boston Chicken. I was on with that group, and we built hundreds of stores around the country. And then from there, I went to Einstein Bagels. And then there, I went on to a company called Au Bon Pain, who bought Panera Bread. And we built, everyone knows the brand of Panera Bread. And that group, while I was working there, some guys I worked with in the past said, "Hey, we're going to start a company. Would you like to be a partner?" And I joined as a partner. And that was CDO Group about 27 years ago. And shortly thereafter, I bought the company from them. And, back then there were guys who, if you look at the industry, in fact, the buyers will get this as well. Look, there are companies who do a great job of renting videos or selling chicken or making sandwiches, and they hire this entire staff of people to manage their development or manage their buying, right? And what we're really starting to notice is that those brands don't belong doing that. They really belong focusing on their core values. And their core values, or whatever they're selling, and finding the expertise in the outsourcing model to be able to have people do that. And that's how I started CDO Group, right? It was really designed to help brands. CDO stood for Corporate Development Outsourcing, but it also stood for Chief Development Officer, right? And it was kind of a double play on words where I would practice everything that fell under that that person's role. And we would do all the stuff from finding site selection, managing construction, managing the remodel programs, managing their facility maintenance work. And we could outsource that. And, 25 years ago, outsourcing wasn't a big thing. And we as we talked to people, we actually invented the brand. We invented the idea. We invented it. And, it grew, and then all of a sudden outsourcing became the thing. People started realizing, hey, we don't need cows to get milk. We could just buy the milk. And we happened to be standing in front of the floodgates, and it was just a very, very opportune time to be there. And we did a lot of hard work to earn that right. And today we build, thousands and thousands of projects all around the country. And we've got a pretty good model for doing that.
Yeah. Was there a kind of pivotal moment that really established you in a big way? Is there a particular occurrence that you could like to reflect back on that, really set things on fire for you?
There are a couple of those, right? I mean, the first big brand that we got was Red Lobster. Red Lobster it's a national restaurant brand, sit down kind of second market type restaurant group. They do seafood restaurants, and they asked us to remodel about 180 locations. And at the time, we had 5 employees, and we literally made up that we had more. And this is what I call throwing your keys over the fence. As an entrepreneur, you get these small little opportunities, and you got to take really good care of them. And we said yes. And as we were building the plane, as we were inventing the idea, we were building the plane, and we're building the model, and it took a lot of focus, right? And I think that's the stuff that people don't get is you get a couple of opportunities as an entrepreneur. When you get them, you've got to execute on them with every might you have. And we did. We worked day and night tirelessly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sleeping. We had my office at the time was in the basement of my house. And I had an old dining room table, an old wooden table that was kind of an antique table that my mother had or my grandmother had or something that was in my basement. And I had a secretary or assistant on one side. I had a project manager in the middle. I sat on the other end. We had another project manager who had a piece of wood over a garbage can, and he sat in an oversized chair, and he looked like one of the Peanuts, the Linus guy playing the piano on that thing. And we slowly built. We slowly grew. And we just kind of figured it out. We just knew that this was an opportunity to take advantage of. And we executed on it really well, and they invited us to do more projects. And I think that's the key right there is that good people, when they stay focused, can do so much. And there's where the entrepreneur has to look at and go, all right, how am I set to go take on these opportunities?
Yeah. Now, you mentioned quite a few names there, significant brands. And a key thing is the relationship with those brands. And I'm sure there are people in those companies that have a vision. Now, how do you collaborate with your customers to make sure that you deliver the vision they're really looking for?
The start of it was about understanding their needs, right? And committing, so what I really knew is I had sat, for me, it was easy because I had sat in their seat, right? I was at a director or above at multiple companies before that. And I knew that every single day someone would walk in my office, and sometimes even twice a day, I'd have to change my development plan. Today we would be building 50 new locations, and then next month, an acquisition of a new brand. Now we had 50 new locations and 30 remodels. And how do you staff for that? How do you manage that process? And what I knew was that person's role was ever changing, right? There's someone who would walk in and ask them to do something or ask her to do something. And I had to be the one that there was a go-to, right? I had to be there. And one of the things I realized was I had to communicate with them in a way. So I would set up the strategy calls on a regular basis with folks. And what I mean by that is you don't want to take a lot of their time, but just kind of a check-in, right? Or, hey, look, I want to see what your schedule looks like, how the projects come up. We'll take your overflow work. And a lot of times we would start with literally, it wasn't high revenue producing work. It wasn't big money, but it kept us in the conversation. Every week we got the strategy lists. We got the list of projects that were coming up. And when the big program came, we were there to gobble it up, right? But you wouldn't be there. You wouldn't even have a seat at the table had you not taken on the small work, right? If you didn't know that just by and while you did the small work, do it professionally, right? Don't take it as small work. Don't act like it's second fiddle. Be grateful for everything that you get from them, and and just always be looking for the opportunity that here's a hurdle for them to jump. How do we execute and deliver for them? And that's all we did. We built trust with the people that were in charge of that work. That call someone could get that call on their team. The internal people didn't have the desire that we did, right? They got a paycheck. We lived hand to mouth by the projects we got. So every project we delivered had to be good because at any time they could kick us off the team. And it kind of forced us to kind of up the ante and actually be the example. Oftentimes we get calls from customers and they say, how do you guys do that? How do you deliver projects on time? Well, here's what we do. And we're happy to share that with you. It's not a secret. It's just it's a way that we act.
Some really good, interesting points there. As you say, it's key to build the relationships with those people. After all, they're people you're dealing with, and we all like to get along. You make regular calls with them. You build it's a fundamental, ongoing friendship, perhaps even as well as a relationship. They always knew you. This is the guy to go to if I need something done. He's reliable. He's got good quality. It's almost like, why would they think of anybody else to do any of their construction works? And that's a critical point in any relationship between a buyer and a company, is that you, as a buyer, want to know you have somebody you can trust and rely upon, and they're going to be there for you, and you know they're looking out for your interests as well. So I think there's an awful lot you've packed into that statement. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now, one of the things I see, particularly in the last few months, is the emerging technologies, the AI, the chat GPT, everything that's coming, really hitting us hard and fast now. A year or two ago, 3D printing, was still relatively in its infancy, and it's booming. Now, I love emerging technology, and I know that you're a guy that is clearly going to be on the pulse of things. So if we think about AI and 3D and other technologies, what would you say particularly as being the future in the construction industry?
Across the world, we are seeing the AI is happening faster than ever, right? And it's not going to be just construction. It's literally going to be throughout the entire the human experience. Everything that we do, everything that we learn, it will impact us in such a dramatic way that people get scared, right? I mean, and here's what I'm going to start off with. So we're going to talk about AI and with your audience, and it's a big conversation. It really is. Look, it's going to impact every single person that listens to us right now. If you're not hearing this, it will impact your life in a dramatic way. Now, the first thing that people do when they say that is they shut down. Right. A lot of people just get real shut down and they go, I'm not going to listen. And I hear it. And most people want to go, it's not going to do it in my lifetime. I'm saying the next 3 to 5 years, AI will be in all of our lifetimes. It's there now. Some of us don't even see it, and we don't even notice it. Right. Today, AI knows you better than you know yourself. Right. We're watching on the way that we buy stuff, the way that we order stuff. When you get in your car and it tells you 7 minutes to the destination you're going to every morning. Right. It knows exactly where you're going, how you're traveling. That's AI. Today, that model is getting so much smarter. You and I have a 75, 80-year lifespan, right? Somewhere we expire, and we're trying to get everything done right now. Well, AI doesn't have that same time. It has infinite time, right? So right now, what they're working on is really developing the model. And across the world, something to pay attention to. If you're a manufacturer, it's now time to get into it. If you're a producer, it's now time to get into it. If you're a construction worker, it's now time to get into it. The thing that's going to happen anytime there's an emerging technology, if you look at, shipping and e-commerce, right? You can see where small countries took great advantage of that when that was invented and dominated the planet, right? Little countries like England, you really figured it out, or Spain or France. These are small countries who figured out the technology really, really well, and they dominated the planet. Right? They were around and set up colonies and set up organizations and trade routes way before everybody else. And their separation from the rest of the group was exponential, right? You could see from where they went from these little countries to being this massive growth model, right? And that same thing is about to happen, but let's say that they did it times 10. Well, we're about to do that times 10,000, right? The folks that really take on artificial intelligence and the assistance that it is, right? Sometimes we want to have a new emerging technology and get all caught up in it's too much to comprehend. It's not. We've been augmenting our lives forever, right? Ask any woman, right? Look, they don't leave the house without wearing makeup, right? I mean, it makes them feel better, makes them look more beautiful. They feel better wearing it, right? Ask any man, right? We don't walk outside without wearing clothes and belts and shoes because it makes our clothes stay up. It makes us walk better. You can't walk in gravel roads without a pair of shoes. We've been augmenting our lives. I mean, how about glasses? We've been wearing glasses forever, right? I can see better. That was all augmented. It was all a way of augmenting our own reality, right? These are things that helped us out. Now, when AI comes along, we all get a little shocked. We don't understand it. Really, all AI is really the ability to think about multiple things at one time. It takes ideas and breaks them down into little ideas, solves each one of those ideas, and then brings it back together in a very fast pace, right? We as human beings do this every single day, right? Every brand that you look at, every company you look at, all a company is really an idea that someone expanded on and organized. Look, when I built CDO Group, hey, we're going to go outsource construction for people. Great. We started that as an idea, and then we started expanding on that. And every time you expanded, hey, the guys over at Red Lobster gave us a deal. Now we have to go organize, right? Because between the two of those things is chaos, right? We got the deal. Now we have to get it done, right? And in between becomes chaos. And if you want to stay in chaos, or you want to expand, you have to start to organize, hire people, create processes. And that's what AI is going to do for us, is really make that processing a lot smarter. There's places, for example, like in construction, humans kind of suck at it. And I really mean that. I really mean that. I've run a construction company for years, 25 years. I've owned CDO Group. And I can just tell you that there's so many moving parts that it's difficult to communicate between so many different silos of groups, right? From the way that we design drawings, to the way that we get it permitted, to the way that we go order equipment and have it delivered on job sites, to the way that we bid out projects. It's such an inefficient model today. Now, we're noticing that. And as we start to look at different tools to manage that, today there are great groups that are working on great solutions. They're the beginning levels of artificial intelligence, right? The ways of tracking and creating one source of truth so that we can all share in the data. Right now, if you look at most of the construction world, we built a Coliseum and we built the last chicken restaurant I built in a very similar manner, maybe except for maybe some internet cameras and some spreadsheets, but we carried heavy stuff from one place to another place. We banged on it a few times and we missed schedules and deadlines, but we finally got it done. And because people have to interact with construction for such a small window of time comparatively to the building, if you look at the Coliseum, let's say that took 100 years to build. Well, it's been around for thousands of years now. And the amount of time that they spent actually interacting with construction folks, that amount of time, right? People put up with the brain damage. But today we're moving so much faster. The world needs so much more built. The places that we're going, the population growth, we're going to double in population very shortly here. We've always worried about what's going to happen as we grow. Well, we've created these massive food supplies. We now have food supplies that are pretty sustainable, right? And we're working on really creating that even smarter and smarter. If you look at everybody who sells food products, they're looking at smarter ways to develop it. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Some of them are working, some of them are not working. Some of the pesticides and things, but that pendulum swings. We learn something, and then it comes back, and we kind of adjust it a little bit more. We're all going through that in every segment of the learning. Right? So as we look at AI, I really challenge us to look at it as a augmented way of supporting us, right? It's like that assistant, that part of us that helps us do things smarter. And if it pushes your button to think that AI is going to do this better than you, good, right? Let your ego get a little bit pushed, because that's what's holding us back. The belief that nothing can do it better than humans can. And somehow or another, by giving up the stuff that we're not good at, that somehow that's affecting us. We're not as good at people. Our sense of entitlement, our sense of feeling that we're worth something is lessened because now an artificial intelligence can do it better than I can. And that right there is the flaw, right? And letting go of that and going, great, I don't need to do any of that. Let's let it do it better, right? No one ever said that walking around with a barefoot was better than walking around with sneakers on. Right? No one got mad about that. Their egos didn't get bumped about that, right? Here, putting sneakers on was great. Right now I wear sneakers and my feet don't bleed every time I go hit a rocky patch, right? And there wasn't a problem with that. But somehow or another, having an AI assistant seems like, oh my God. But today you go look at the taxi world, and it used to be such a mess of a system, right? Where you had to have these shields and people had to go get a license, and then you had to go. Today, technology does it, and you got Uber. You know where your car is at when you're getting it. You know how to pay for it. The transaction's easy. Anybody that can drive a car can drive Uber today. And the model works in a much smarter, in a much different way. Now, you can fight it, right? There'll be places where we win and we lose, right? It's always going to happen with new technology. But let's get into the AI piece of it, right? As we look at things like construction, let's just kind of take a look at where we're really inefficient. Dave, I would say to you, have you had something built lately?
A conservatory not too long ago.
Talk to me about the stuff that was good about it. Was talk about the stuff that was bad about it.
The good was it went together and it was on time and to budget. Bad, I think it was a fairly good experience actually with the company. Was everything perfect at the end? Of course not. There's always a snagging list, which is what I call a snagging list. Little things that are not quite perfect. I need adjustment and tweaking until I'm quite happy with the end result. So if you say that's the bad thing, then yes, there were some errors that needed correcting.
It's awesome, right? Now, imagine doing that same project in a world where you could actually be in it before you ever build it, right? I just got done doing a podcast with a group of folks that have these HoloLenses, or even we've got other ones where you can be in a 3D model and be completely in it. You actually can be not just an augmented reality, but a virtual reality where you're in the space and you can see how the doors open, how the lights shine, how the drawers open, how the equipment rolls, where to put the garbage can, where the vacuums go, how to hang the pictures. You can see it in such detail. Right now it's good detail. What's about to come becomes no different, where as if you or I are literally standing side by side, even more than we're doing today. Today, you and I are in a 2D interaction because we have a camera that we have to deal with, right? And in that camera, now we have to look at a screen. And in that screen makes it difficult for us to really feel a sense of presence. Even though we do a pretty good job because you and I can communicate well in here, the future will have us feel like I can look into your eyes. I can feel your presence. I'll have a sense that we're together. And the way that transition is going to happen is in the beginning of starting with, the model has changed. And the first thing that really changed it was the invention of LiDAR. So LiDAR is this laser way of measuring devices, and we use it in 3D. We use it in 3D printing. We use it in self-driving cars. We use it, and it gives the ability for the digital world and the physical world a way to interact, right? So it has the physical world create places in the digital world where the two of them are alignment. Today, guys on construction sites can flip down a double lens set of glasses and can see exactly where the wall is going to be. They can see exactly where the ductwork is going to be. What they've been able to create is these things called total stations, right? A total station creates a datum line, a point where we can measure from, and everything on the job site gets measured from there. And you can see it in live action as you put a wall in, as you put drywall on, as you put finishes on. You'll be able to interact with that space from the digital platform and the physical platform in a much more streamlined manner. In the old days, architectural drawings, right? If you looked at the old architects, they were actually blueprints. They were blueprints with white lines on them. And as you would mark on a plan, a blue line would essentially transfer down to another line. And today, that line represented a wall, right? And you would know that, this wall, this size wall, this size line represented this type of wall. And there would be a legend over here. Now, the legend would say, all right, this is a drywall on both sides. And this one over here is a cement wall. And this one over here is a brick wall. And you had different wall types based on the different looks. Well, the future, there's this product called Revit. And Revit really takes the wall, and that line represents not just what type of wall it is, but it represents, if it's a drywall wall, it represents the bottom track. It represents the studs. It represents all the materials that are inside of it, the plumbing, the electrical, HVAC. It represents the screws that hold the tracks together. It takes all the parts and pieces of the wall and identifies them in the creation of the wall on the plan. Now, what's amazing about that is in design, while the technology, the future really will have AI design drawings. We'll be able to design the architectural part, where the architect will really go back to what the architects did well: create environment, feel, a sense of the human part of it, the part that they were really great at, the creative edge that human beings are great at, that the creative energy of feeling and sense of environment, and how do they understand community better, right? AI will be able to take their ideas and translate that into a drawing, and the architect will really focus more on creating the environment, that sense of what the humans need to make it scalable, a place of togetherness, really something that AI won't be able to translate. Maybe someday they will, someday they'll get there, but the first levels of artificial intelligence will really be able to be more functional. And the first parts of the AI drawings they'll be able to do drawings, right? They'll be able to figure out how to take my idea and turn that into a set of drawings. Now, what's great about that is it'll break down every part and piece. And in design, it'll be able to go to create the part and pick list of all the materials I need to buy. Now, what's even more exciting about that is it'll be able to pick from materials available around the world. And what's even more exciting about that is it'll be able to go back to raw materials. It'll be able to look at the supply chain, costing, availability, transportation, timing, and make sure that it meets the specifications of a project. Imagine that in design, while it's designing the building, it's picking the best materials that will last the longest, that'll be the strongest, that are available in time for the project delivery, and the workforce that's available to serve the workforce that's able to serve the construction of the project. Imagine all that happens simultaneously. Today, that process is so clunky with humans. We design something, we go back to it, it's not right, then we go back to it, we go over here, then we go back over, can't get the product, can't get the people, can't get the product, can't get the people, it doesn't meet the budget. That time is so time consuming that it just eats up tremendous amounts of time. The future will be that there'll be no more general contractors. Artificial intelligence will essentially take the scope of work and design. It'll divvy up the product, right? And it'll have it go right to the marketplace, to the people, very much like Uber does, right? We don't need taxi companies anymore. Today, it goes right to the drivers and says, hey, you 5-star drivers, you get first pick of the products over here, right? Hey, you 4-star drivers, you get second pick. Your 3-star driver, and people that will want to maintain their 5-star there's 5-star construction, want first pick, closer jobs, higher paying. They'll want to do better and deliver a better product. And they'll get paid more for that, right? As they should, right? And the folks that have, who don't deliver on time or have bad cars or are talking appropriately, just like Uber, their rankings will go down, right? And they'll have second pick, and that'll cost them, right? So if you want to be successful, you'll produce more value, right? You'll be the Uber car that has the water bottle in it. You'll make sure you have the charging cord, right? You're the one who makes sure that you go around and open the door and put the luggage in, right? You want to make sure that your customer rates you at a 5-star. Well, the same thing will happen in construction, right? The folks that will be able to deliver projects on time, and they'll get first pick. So now artificial intelligence will design the building, and now it'll go to the marketplace. Say, all right, Mr. 5-star plumbers, we're going to build Anthony and Dave's new sandwich shop over here in the center. And you and I have the best sandwich shop idea ever, right? We're going to build the best sandwich shop that ever existed. Dave, you ever thought about doing a restaurant?
Coffee shop, one
there you go.
Some time ago. Yeah.
What kind of coffee shop would you make?
One that's very cozy. People enjoy the environment. It's not too sterile or clinical. One that has an ambiance to it where people can sit and relax. You can read your book and, you can chill in there and feel at home.
You'd walk in and you could feel the environment, right? You walk in, you could smell the comfort, right? You can walk in and see the smiles, right? You and I would do a great job of working on that part, right? Now, the part that's the really hard part for the entrepreneurs is finding the location. Where are our perfect customers, right? And we start off with going out to the marketplace and looking for locations. As a young real estate professional, I would sit on job sites, and I would count cars as they came by with a clicker. On the other hand, I would count how many pedestrians walked by, and I'd go do analysis of the people that were there and the houses that were in the neighborhood and the hospitals down the street and the churches on the corner. And I'd go look at all the grocery stores, and I'd look at the marketplace. And at best, maybe I could get 20 different components that would help me make a decision about the property I was going to buy. The future will really have it so that AI will be able to go look at that model with tens of thousands of components to understand the marketplace, where people work, how they work, which way they go home, which side of the street should the coffee shop be on? Should it be on the going to work side? Should it be on the coming home side? Should it be somewhere where late night activity happens? How do we start to look at Dave and Anthony's coffee shop and where our model or demographic people will be, right? The future will have it that as we look at that, the next hard thing is we find the location, but now we got to figure out our cost, right? And there's a whole bunch of things that go into play there. There's the cost of the architectural drawings. There's the shape of the building that we get when we get the building. Some buildings have air conditioning, some people don't. Some have bathrooms, some don't, right? The way we get that space delivered dramatically changes the way the cost of the project will be. Well, in the future, when a building's built in Revit, you'll know every single component in it. You know exactly where they're at. The architectural drawings, we adapt to it. Today, when we go to a new space, we essentially gut it because it's too hard to figure out what's inside the walls and what to do. It takes more time to figure that out than to be surgically cut them open, put them in there, and just do some adaptation to it. The future will know what's in the walls, we'll know where everything's at. You'll be able to see it, and you'll be able to surgically plant and maximize our effectiveness with the products we want to add to it and the products we don't need to change. We'll really be able to see that in a much smarter way. Now, you and I will be able to do that in an instant, right? Because the AI model will be able to know the real estate, know the projects that happened before there, know the parts and pieces that are in the building, what's worth keeping, what's not worth keeping. It'll be able to assess the air conditioning, right? Look, that the people that were there before were there for 15 years. They never changed the air conditioner. In fact, it'll be able to look up its service records and look that it's not energy efficient. It'll be able to look at its electric bill and its performance. And it'll be able to say, Anthony, you and Dave should change that air conditioning unit. Today, we can find a much more energy efficient unit, and it's available on the shelf, and it'll be able to put that in the product. It'll meet our project deadlines. And over the time of your lease, you'll save yourselves $300 a month by using, or $300 a year by using this air conditioning unit. It'll pay for itself over a couple of years, right? That's the kind of logic that changes where we're going. Now, how does that affect buyers? And I talked a lot about being able to see things much, much differently. Now, this is what's really important. If you're a buyer or you're a manufacturer that's out there today, what should you be doing to get prepared for artificial intelligence? What are the things you got to be doing? Well, right now, manufacturers have got to be thinking data sourcing. They need to understand their product better than anything, be able to have all the data components of it so they can share that with the internet. Look, the AI model won't be able to pick up your product and use it in development or design if it doesn't have the model, if it doesn't have the tensile strength of the fabrics, if it doesn't have the hoses. If today the world has you show a water fountain somewhere. The manufacturer of those water fountains will need to have every single component of the water fountain in their sales literature. Understand every part, every piece, every type of material they use. That the more data you can collect today to feed that model, the better you will be placed, and the more revenue you'll get created, and the more places it'll be able to use you. It'll know the size, the shape, the location, and how to implement that. What are the requirements for your product, right? To be able to go later on and be able to put your fabrics, your rubbers, your cements, all the products that you use, the data model needs that. It'll need to know the strengths and the components of that. And the more information that it's given, the more opportunity you'll be able to get used. Those companies who go, no, I'm not doing that. I'm selling this cheap product and I'm never going to do that. Great. You'll be the taxi drivers that are outclassed by the Uber drivers.
As I say, it's quite a fascinating picture you're painting there. You're talking about efficiency. You're talking about, as you say, huge amounts of data, the data analysis being so quick and instantaneous. You'll have all the information to hand because your buildings would have been modeled and recorded. Any changes made, then if it's put through the same system, of course, then it immediately occurs. Or you can visualize these things either real time, or you can tinker with what it would look like if you made some changes in your mind. You can have it instantly in front of you. So there's a huge amount of efficiencies to be made, throughout the whole of the process there. You can look at the scheduling and as you mentioned, the resource allocation. Where is it best to have the people at the right time to deliver things, obviously appropriately? You're building and identifying patterns in your construction process, basically. So it's a huge amount that you've just shared there. There's almost a book you've just shared on what the potential is. You're talking about materials, the optimum materials, the best place to get it from. You're probably thinking about the carbon footprint as a result of that. So you want to reduce your carbon costs because you're bringing it to the right places. You're choosing the right materials for sustainability and energy efficiency. So absolutely, you've just painted an incredible picture. How far away do you think the reality of these things are actually going to be?
That question gets asked all the time. And people, when I don't have an answer about something, you ever notice it, like when you don't have an answer about something, you pull from past experiences and you'll fill that hole of something I don't know, right? When I don't know it. But look, today, the answer is it's happening right now. It's literally happening now. For those of us that aren't willing to see it, what's going to happen is there are people who are adopting this now. People who are working in it now, who are learning. Now, sometimes you think, am I on the bleeding edge or am I on the leading edge? Right? Because no one wants to be on the bleeding edge. We want to be on the leading edge, but look, we're on that leading edge today. AI is here today, right? We're seeing self-driving cars. We're seeing ChatGPT. We're seeing all of the building blocks that took us through the bleeding components of it. Now, the real thing to really start to look at is if you're a manufacturing company, how do you start to look at, even if your products aren't 100% there, but how do you start to look at your manufacturing process, right? How do you look at creating one source of truth so that everything in your company is on one, all the data goes through one source of truth, so that as the AI model needs to be able to understand from the point you get the raw materials to the time you deliver the product to the end, timing, expectations, cost, all the components that it takes to go through that. Because remember, that model won't just be take your widget and put it over here. That model will be understanding where the components for the widget come from. What are the risks? What are the things that are going to come into play as I spec that product? If it can't see it, it'll have to add another layer of risk to it that may outclass your product. The clearer your manufacturers and the raw suppliers of materials can see their processes and make that a reliable source of deliverable for products, the more the model will use your products. And that's going to be the driver, right? If the people who aren't seeing that, the people who aren't looking at that today, they're not noticing that now's the time to start putting that together. Because the folks who are going to be ahead, once this really starts to roll fast, again, just like how shipping changed the world, the people who know it and the people who don't will separate so fast. The people who are trying to catch up won't be able to catch up. It won't be able to catch up fast enough. So it really does behoove us, wherever you are, whatever the product is you're using, to really start to look at your systems and look at how am I putting this together and how am I being efficient?
Yeah. Now, we've just faced and still are facing considerable supply chain disruption. And what we'd like to have is the utopia of, the very conversations you've just shared, the information just shared, but things happen. COVID happens, war happens, which really disrupt these things. Now, I'm no doubt your guys have had to really deal with this disruption in a very challenging way. And I'm intrigued to know, in your business, how do you prepare for disruption? How do you prepare that you resolve any potential conflicts with suppliers? How do you prepare to get the relationships in place with those suppliers such that they're there to work with you in a quick and efficient way to resolve problems?
It's a great conversation. The companies who did it great. We do a lot of work with McDonald's, right? And all through the pandemic, you notice that they didn't have a supply chain issue, or they weren't as disrupted by the supply chain issues. Well, because they worked on their supply chain deliverables before there ever was a pandemic. They worked on all the systems that it was going to take to make sure that they've got great relationships with those vendors, a reliable source of materials. They went back to raw data. They took their supply chain all the way back to raw materials. And they've been working on that as a system from the get-go. Now, all of a sudden the pandemic comes along. They're still producing. They were brilliant, right? Their drive-throughs never did more volume. They took their internal staff, they closed down the internal parts of the restaurant, they shifted everybody to the drive-through. Their throughput on drive-throughs was legendary. If you look at every brand today, they're all looking at, all right, we need to really look at how we look at our drive-throughs because of just the amount of opportunity McDonald's created during the pandemic and doing that. And today, people want to be able to get through that drive-through much, much faster, right? They're looking at ways of ordering things online, through their phone, through their being able to have that deliverable happen in a much smarter way than ever before, right? The brands that are out there they embrace this early on. Well, that's where I tell people right now is the time to be working on every component of it. And if not, if those companies are out there and they can't see it, there's lots of great data on it. Lots of great places to start looking. Just start paying attention to understanding as the metaverse, to AI, to machine learning. How can I start to implement some of those ideas into the way that we manufacture today?
Sure. Obviously, one of the beauties, of the McDonald's model is the fact they are producing the same things repeatably and extremely efficiently. Now, in your world, you're probably not building so many things on a repeatable basis. So you have far more variety to deal with. So, it's great to refer to the McDonald's model, but you've got an even tougher task to deal with. So what kind of things have you put in place with your teams to try to be as resilient, robust, flexible, and adaptable when these things occur?
So we worked all through the pandemic, right? As we went through that, and it was really a great space to start to really look at. I'll give you a great example. We realized that one of the things that we always try to do is we maximize how many people are on a job site, right? We looked at, if you look at normal construction, our whole thing is how do you get the most amount of people on a job site safely to produce the most amount of value every single day, right? One of the things I have on the other side of this wall, on the other side of this podcast room, it says in a 17-foot sign across that rooms, it says from dirt to dishes in 4 weeks. And our whole goal is to be able to build ground-up buildings in 4 weeks. And it sounds like an audacious goal, right? It's this big, bold, audacious goal. How do we go from dirt to being able to produce food in a restaurant in 4 weeks, right? That's a dramatic goal. Now, look, it's not just about the time. It's about who we become and the way that we look at data that really changes. It's a mindset change. It's what people don't get. It's not doing what we're doing now. When you say that to most people, they get exhausted. I can't think about that. Oh my God, that just seems overwhelming, right? I could barely get done in 4 months, let alone 4 weeks, right? And they just think, I can't work any more hours, right? It becomes this unattainable way of working. They're like, I'm exhausted now, and you're asking me to do it, and I can't do it. It's not the same thing. And this is what people have to get. It's not the same thing faster. It's a whole nother way of looking at it. Right? It's a whole nother way of looking at the processing of the way we do construction. Now, part of what I got to really tell you is that today construction is such an inefficient model because let's just kind of go through that real quick. right? Let's just say that you and I are going to do our coffee shop. We got Dave, you got the coffee. You cannot wait to sell the coffee that your ancestors created this coffee, and you can't wait to produce that coffee. And we're going to sell it. And I can't, look, I'm going to do the bakery goods. I have the best bakery goods for our coffee shop. And together, you and I are going to make it feel like home. It'll feel like the kind of place that you walk in, you'll know you're there. Your mouth will water. Your heart will be warm. You can't wait to do that. And we think we can reproduce that in multiple locations. Great. Now, you and I go, let's go find an architect. The guy says, well, that's going to cost you $20,000 for a set of drawings. And you and I go, well, we're on a budget. You think you could do it for $15,000? And the guy goes, okay, I'll do it for $15,000. And now he comes back, he goes to his staff, and he goes to his director, hey, listen, you only got $15,000. And she says, hey, $15,000. Okay, I'll figure out how to do it for $15,000. Like Dave and Anthony, they're going to do a bunch of those locations. They seem like nice guys. I want to build their location. We're going to do it for $15,000. Now, somewhere she's got to cut some corners to make that $15,000 work on her drawings. So now those drawings go in for permitting. Now, because they're kind of half-baked and a little bit less quality, and now they take longer in permitting. Now, you and I are out there. We found the location. We sat down with the lease. Now we're in permitting, and permitting takes twice as long as it normally does because we have to go back and forth about she doesn't put the material list or the equipment list, or she doesn't put the stuff in there to make sure that everything that the inspector's looking for while they're doing plan review they can see. Now we have to go back and forth and back and forth. And I see some of these plans go back when an architect goes back and forth with a city, and it's 15 times the plans weren't done, right? We should never submit in the first place, right? Essentially, that first list they get is really a completion list. The plans weren't baked properly, but they were on a budget, they were on a timeline, they rushed it. Now that inefficiency starts there. Now all of the coordination, because it all happened in permitting, never gets coordinated. So the electrical drawings and the mechanical drawings and the plumbing drawings, they don't line up with with each other. Now one guy sees something on one page, but he doesn't see it on another page, and we go to bid it, and the electrician says, yeah, I bid the electrical drawings, but he didn't see that there was a fan on the mechanical drawings that never showed up in the electrical drawings. Now we get to the field, and now I get a change order. Or on the architectural drawings, there were garage doors that never showed up on the electrical drawings. Or the plumbing drawings have a water fountain that never end up on the architectural drawings. And now that doesn't meet clearances for doors, or something happens. When we start with information or rush it, right, our business is plagued with that. Now, because we started with bad drawings, we went through permitting with bad drawings, you and I may start paying rent on a location we don't even own yet. We haven't even started yet. We haven't even started construction. We're already paying rent on it. Now we got to go out to bid. Now you and I say, well, I've got a few contractors, and I say, I got a few contractors. We get 5 contractors to bid. We're going to get the best price. And we start with all the contractors. We get our numbers back. Now let's say that each contractor has 20 line items to bid. They've got the equipment. They've got the plumbing. They got the HVAC. They got the tile floor. They got the ceiling. They got the painting. They got the signs. We got 20 line items. And every contractor wants to win, so they go to 3 contractors. They go to 3 subs for every line item. Each contractor, that's 60 subs bidding on every project for each contract. That's 5 contractors, 60 subs. That's 300 groups of people that are bidding for our little coffee shop. Now, let's say that you and I want to spend $400,000 to build that coffee shop, but it costs each one of those subgroup, before they've ever made $1, let's say it costs them $1,000 each just to stop their day, get the plans printed out, go to their suppliers, take the time that it takes to get their people to put together a bid. That's $300,000 in expenses before anybody ever got awarded the project. Now, your guy says, I can do it for $10. My guy says, no, I can do it for $9. And your other guy says, no, I can do it for $8. And then another guy comes back and says, I can do it for $7. And then you go, no, my other guy says he can do it for $6. And we go, great, we got a guy who can do it for $6. And now we go to construction, and we realize the guy with $6, he doesn't have the people he promised us, right? He said he had 5 people, but he only had 2 people, right? And he had 3 laborers. The 2 people were good, but the other 3 people, they were barely breathing. Now, all the subcontractors have to work with that. And by the way, they all lied too, right? Now the industry's already been taken for $300,000. Now those people show up on job sites, and they have to work with the $6 an hour groups, and the $6 an hour or $6 guys are very inefficient. So you show up on jobs expecting to do all my work today, but the guy in front of me never got his work done. So now I got to come back, and the inefficiencies of that. And then remember, we pay the architect $15,000 rather than $20,000. Now the drawings are wrong. And they're not there, and I had to rip stuff out that I had to do again. I had to do it back and forth a couple of times. Or the products we went to select aren't available anymore. Now I got to go back and get an RFI or request for information. That all the efficiency is so much brain damage that when we change this over to an artificial technology point of view, it'll take most of that out. And the speed in the future, A plumber will show up on a job site. They'll bid a project. Let's say that today a plumber will have a new type of plumbing, right? There's a new material they're using, but they're a plumber. They understand how to do stuff. They'll get trained. The system will train them. I don't know about you, but I was terrible at school. I was terrible, Dave. I barely got through college or school in general. I hated it, but I love to learn. Here, I read a book a week. I love learning. I just hated it in school, right? So I didn't do well sitting at a desk and hearing a teacher go wah 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 wah. Just didn't work for me. I don't know about you, but it didn't work for me. It was terrible. But today I read books. I love movies. I love ideas. I love talking to people like you and getting great ideas. Love learning. Now, AI in the future will train that plumber on a new idea or a new product they're going to use. They'll be able to teach them how they learn best. It might be in a movie they're watching. It might be while they're eating breakfast. It might be in the car ride on the way to work. It'll be able to train them the way that person wants to get trained, the way that they work best. Does that make sense?
Yep. There's some fascinating insights there. That's great for you to share. I notice our time is coming very quickly to an end. I know you're a very, very busy guy. So thanks for sharing such a wealth of information there. I'm sure people are curious, particularly about yourself and what you do. Where's the best place people go to find out more about you and what you do? What's your social channels, your website, etc.?
Sure. So you can always get me on my email, anthony@cdogroup.com. You can get me on Anthony Amunategui at LinkedIn, Amunategui at LinkedIn. You can always get me at CDO Group as a company. I'm the founder of the company. You can find me there. Or even more importantly, I love all your guests. Come over and see me over at Future Factory. Future Factory, where we talk about AI and machine learning and all kinds of other human development stuff as we look going forward. So, Dave, I would love to have your folks come over and join us over there.
Brilliant. One last thing. Now, I'm thinking of the aspiring person who's leaving college, have got a great education, perhaps they've got some qualifications, and they're saying, I want to be in construction. I want to be doing the very things you talked about, the procurement, the supply chain, working with AI. What would you say to them about how do they go about pursuing a career in the construction industry? What's there for them and there for their future?
Construction is dramatically, it's going to speed up. There will be, with the population growth that's about to happen, the explosion of population, home building, home buying will be at a peak. We'll always go through economic ups and downs. Every country you've ever seen goes through them, and you can see them in the older countries better, right? Hundreds of them over time. To think that it will go down and never come back up again is foolish, right? If you're going to get into construction, really get to understand the fundamentals. If construction's where you want to be, understand why things work the way they do. Get a good broad knowledge of it, overview. But even more importantly, be the one that understands technology better than ever, right? For those archaic dinosaurs that don't want to change, having folks on their team that understand it well and bring it will really have them speed up their careers dramatically, right? Be the one that understands the technology better than anybody else on the team.
Brilliant. Some great wise words there to finish off with there, Anthony. Thank you very much for an outstanding hour of our time. I've really enjoyed it. I think people are going to have to really take some notes at the end of this and go through what you've said, break it down and do some individual research. Perhaps have to go on to AI to study it more. So brilliant. Without any further time from you, thank you so much for joining me today.
Dave, I love your show. I love your show. The work you do is amazing. You are a shining light in this industry. You're so easy to talk to. I know I jumped on that for a while and kind of ran on there, but I love your show. I love hearing your guest. You're a wealth of knowledge, and thanks for having me on the show today.
An absolute pleasure. You take care.
Thank you.
So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it and it's given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. If you are a purchasing or a supply chain professional, business owner or director, come and join my Facebook group, the Purchasing and Supply Chain Community Hub, a safe place to engage with like-minded, friendly people. See you soon. Bye.